Well, hi everybody, and welcome to another Kings of Anglia podcast. It's Thursday. It's Thursday. It's definitely Thursday. Yes, I just think what day of the week. It's definitely Thursday. The sun is still shining, which is about 4 days on the trot now. So this is wonderful. Well, Kings of Anglia family, I hope you're all well, and I hope you're looking forward to the weekend. A big game, of course, at the weekend. Like I said, I'm Mike Bacon. La Porca de la Maslian, which is a little bit of Chinese there among my La Porca fans. So I'm here. The Heath man is still recovering, and sadly the Hutch Warren has had to call off as well today, which is very sad, because we're looking forward to speaking to him. But he's got some more hay coming for his rabbit hutch, which he has to be there to collect, so he can't be there. But that's very sad. But when we miss him, but he'll be back on. He'll be back next week. We'll have to see. But anyway, I am joined by two wonderful kings of this podcast. Of course, soon to be award-winning podcast. By the way, you might know we keep getting nominated for lots of awards. We don't win any, but we have good piss-ups. Good nights out on them anyway. But the first person I'd introduce you to is a man who's he's making his name through getting his videos banned. He's a banned man, but I mean he's a good man. It's a Roscoe Hawes. Ross, welcome to the Kings of Anglia podcast. Hope you're well and looking forward to the weekend.
I'm fine. I don't know what else to say, to be honest. I always brace myself for these intros, but they're always enjoyable, Mike, and I'm sure the listeners enjoy that first 2 minutes of the podcast.
Well, when I say your videos are banned, they're not banned as such. I'm being a bit unfair. You just keep creeping into the wrong areas, and you have to understand where you have to be. Roscoe, it's all very. Everyone likes their little areas. People like to have their little sort of definitive areas, and you keep creeping into them. You see, which is between you and me, good for you. But I mean, some people get a bit sort of funny about it. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. And my second guest, dare I say, the main guest. Well, he's not a guest; he's a friend. The friend of KOA, because in every business, in every leadership, you have to have a chief. You have to have a chief man. And this man is the chief. He's the chief football writer. Don't mess with this man, because this man tells it as it is. If you want to cross paths, don't cross with this man. This is the doctor. He's been away. He's actually going to tell us where he's been for the last few days. You're not going to believe it, where he's been. But anyway, it's the Dr. Watson. Stu, lovely to see you. How are you looking for? Lovely green shirt you got on there. Very smart. Very smart today. Are you going for a job interview or something later after this, or what's happening? It's
How many coffees have you had this morning? You all right?
Yeah, well,
I think this is just you, though, isn't it? This is Mike Bacon, just always wound up like a spring. I love it. I love a Mike Bacon intro. I'm good. I'm well.
And you've been busy, Stu. Go on. Tell him. You told me. Tell him what you've been doing.
I played a little bit of golf this week. Enjoyed the spring sunshine. So yeah, you're a golfer, Mike. I need to sort my short game out. Tee to green, beautiful. Drives, irons, green high, and then I'm fatting chips, I'm duffing them, I'm thinning them over the back. I can't get out of bunkers. It's driving me potty. I need to get some tips on my short game.
Driving for show, putting for dough. Remember that, young Stu Pot? I mean, that is very, you're going to have to sharpen up your short game. And in fact, you are going to have to sharpen up your short, because a little thing for the KOA family here might not know this, but among us two, among the three of us here, two of us actually do play golf. And one of us is actually the captain of the East Anglian Daily Times Golf Society, aren't I?
You are, yeah. You've just taken on the reins from the legendary Tony Garnett, who's passed on the baton to you. So you have promised you'll make me vice captain this year. I don't know if that comes with any responsibility.
Well, I have promised you that, and I'd like to stick by that, Stu. I think you are the man to be my vice captain, because I think you are just the man for the job. I mean, for instance, it's a lot of responsibility, Stu. It's not just having the title. I mean, I have to do a little speech at the end of the match. I mean, if say for instance, I got hit on the head by a golf ball halfway through the round and carried off somewhere, you're going to have to take over that speech. So I hope you're ready to go. Always
ready, born ready.
Good man. Well, it's enough about golf. Let's talk about football. Let's talk about Ipswich Town, the Super Blues, who, of course, we're still in the playoff race. I know. Oh, how frustrating. We've talked about the Oxford result. We're not going to mention the O word again, Ross, okay, this podcast, because you mentioned it 3 times last time after I said don't mention Oxford anymore, didn't you?
Oxford.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, so we're obviously the Blues are at home to Plymouth, and we're going to look at the game a little bit later on. But one very significant factor about Saturday's game is the fact it's going to be called. It's been dedicated to Paul Mariner. Paul Mariner Day is the game's going to be called in memory of. Well, there's only one. There's only one person sitting here who actually remembers seeing the great man play. But I know Stuart was saying he's read his book, and I know loads of guys have probably seen him on YouTube. Paul Mariner. Well, Stu, you've had a look at these books. It's not easy when you haven't seen somebody play. But honestly, I'll talk a little bit about him in a minute. He was a great player.
Yeah, I just want to hear from you your memories and thoughts on him. I know you've spoken to Russell Osman this week to get some thoughts on him, and I've really enjoyed reading his book that was kind of in the works in his sort of latter days while he was struggling with the brain condition that he had. But he sounds like a right character, a real throwback to when footballers could enjoy themselves away from football. He's a bit of a rock and roll footballer, wasn't he? Mates with Ian Gillan from Deep Purple, stories of him getting up on stage a bit like sort of shaking some maracas around or playing the drums in the background and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a great book. If people haven't read it yet, have a little read.
Roscoe, have you seen it? I mean, poor chap, you are very young to even remember Paul Mariner. I mean, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here to say, have you done a little bit of viewing on YouTube? There are a few little clips of Paul.
There is, of course, his goal against West Brom in that 7-0 win. What a goal that was. And, you always recognise Paul Mariner because of his hair, number 9, back of his shirt, and the amount of goals he scored as well for the club. But, yeah, it's a shame that I wasn't old enough to see him play, but I've got family members, my uncle, my nan, good old nan, Doreen. She loved him as a player when she was sort of similar age to him. So, of course, she fancied him a little bit because who wouldn't fancy Paul Mariner?
Well, absolutely. He was a fantastic player. As far as let's bring up to date a little bit with Paul Mariner. When I did an interview with Joe Piggott at the start of the season, and he mentioned the fact that he had the number 9 shirt, and sadly, Joe's father passed away earlier, I think last year. But his father had said to Joe about Paul Mariner actually, and the fact that he wore the number 9, and he remembered seeing him, what a great player he was, and told Joe, you're taking over a shirt number there that's really significant. Yeah, what can I say about Paul Mariner? I was so lucky to see him play. I mean, I was just in my early teens, so I was lucky to be brought up through that era of the Bobby Robson era, of his great size through the mid to late 70s and obviously into the early 80s. And how can I describe? If I describe Paul Mariner today, I would describe as a sort of a version of Harry Kane today. In so much as if you can picture Harry Kane, big, strong, wants the ball, scores with his head, scores with his feet, very mobile, not just a target man, does a lot on the ball and off the ball. Paul Mariner was very similar. He worked very hard on the pitch. He wasn't someone you just booted it into the middle and he headed it in the net. He did a lot with his feet. Yes, I spoke to Russell Osman, as you say, Stu, this week. There's a piece going in online, will be going online this week. Russell just loved him. Well, they all loved him. He was a great character. As we say, read his book. He's a great character. Very much a man's man, somebody who you followed, Russell said. He didn't follow other people. Paul Mariner, you followed him. He didn't follow other people, which I think speaks volumes. Huge part of Robson's setup at that time. I mean, he was just a great striker, and he just had all the attributes. It's extraordinary to think of somebody having so many attributes. Of course, 35 England caps, I think, and 13 goals. You don't get those sort of accolades if you're not, you're talking about a good era of English strikers as well, some good strikers about. Yeah, I must admit, when Paul Mariner came to Ipswich, a lot of us sort of didn't really know too much about him. He came from Plymouth, obviously, where he was very successful. But he went on to be, he's the best number 9 I've seen at Ipswich Town. Obviously, I didn't see Ted Phillips, unfortunately, and Ray Croft, who are brilliant. But I must be honest, no one's touched Paul Mariner since. And
the quote from Bobby Robson sums it up, where Bobby Robson talked about, I worked with some great strikers in my time: Lineker, Ronaldo, Romario, Van Nistelrooy, and Paul Mariner. And he puts him in amongst that company, and you can say no more than that, can you? When you look at that list, and for him to be included on there, the Harry Kane sort of comparison's an interesting one. He's a physical player, wasn't he, Paul Mariner? It sounds like he gave out as good as he got in an era of centre-half sharpening their elbows and leaving a bit on you. It sounds like he could hand out a bit of retribution when he wanted to.
He was a very strong player, Stu, a very strong player. And as what Russell Osman, Russell Osman's some lovely quotes from Russell. I hope you do read the piece that I've written later on this week. It's really some lovely quotes. Russell's really in awe of him, because Russell, being a strong centre half himself alongside Butch, I mean, they didn't take too many prisoners, but so they knew what Paul Mariner had to put up with. Back in the day, up playing up top against some strong centre-halves. And you're right, no, he didn't. But he had no temper on him. He didn't get himself in a lot of hassle on the pitch. He was very strong, but he was very disciplined. And he was clearly just a big character in that dressing room as well. And Bobby Robson was very clever at getting some very good characters in that dressing room and made a big difference. What do you think, Roscoe, of the Hammer? You see Harry Kane? It's. How would you see Harry Kane then? Do you see him as a sort of striker who's got so much, and imagining Mariner having the same?
Yeah, Harry Kane, well, he's had to go through some of the hard times. Harry Kane, of course, he got loaned out and had multiple spells before making his name. He's now, I think he possibly could break the Premier League record if he keeps going the way he's going. Now he's back at Spurs doing all right. He's of course linked to move away from Spurs, but I think now he's back on Spurs fans' good books. But yeah, some of the stuff Harry, some of the finishes he makes is just fantastic. Of course, his connection with Son is fantastic, and I'm sure Paul Mariner had partners like that as well in midfield. John Walk, I'm sure even the Dutch guys, Murin and Tyson. I'm sure even like Alan Brazil and those sort of players just linking up play with Paul Mariner, I think, which I'm sure was just fantastic to watch. And yeah, seeing like strikers like Harry Kane, I'm sure they've looked back at clips of Mariner and thinking, yeah, I like to do that as well.
Was it a surprise when he came from Plymouth, Mike? And the reason it's Paul Mariner Day is because obviously Ipswich are playing Plymouth at Portman Road on Saturday. He came from Plymouth, who were the division down. Maybe even 2 down. I can't. You'll have to correct me on when I'm wrong on that. Down. But it was seen as people raise eyebrows at the time that Ipswich were a club sort of progressing and they dipped into a lower division to sign a striker. Did he have to sort of win over a few people in the early days?
Yeah, I think he did. I don't remember I don't remember there being an absolute huge fanfare. Oh my goodness, we signed this guy Paul Mariner. There was a lot of people. Okay. All right, yeah, let's see what he can do. He'd scored lots of goals at Plymouth, mind you. I mean, he was well thought of at Plymouth, but that didn't necessarily going to mean, what was going to happen. The thing with Bobby Robson was, by this time, we'd all started to trust him, okay, completely. I remember Ipswich signing Alan Hunter back in the early 70s. Robson was adamant he wanted to get Alan Hunter there. Again, it was like, who's that? He became pivotal. And of course, later on, Robson signed Murin and Tyson. Again, people were like, Murin and Tyson, we know about them, but are they going to fit in? You trusted Robson at this time. Really, really important. You trusted Robson. And when he signed Mariner, you trusted that he knew exactly what he was doing. And I don't think Paul Mariner came there sort of like everyone's. It wasn't like signing a £10 million striker today. It was signing someone who you rightly say to you was sort of, okay, yeah, he scored some goals for Plymouth, but what does that mean? He developed hugely at Ipswich Town. I mean, he developed very quickly. 6 months after joining Ipswich, he got his first England cap, which is extraordinary. He was nowhere near the England setup, when he came to Ipswich. So, I think he did have a bit to prove. I know he had a lot to prove. It was about 220,000 he joined it, which was a lot of money back then. But I don't think it was. I think people just want to see how he was going to get on. But Ross made some good points there about partnerships. See, Mariner formed some good partnerships. I mean, Alan Brazil was again fantastic player. Him and Mariner were just what a dream. And then the midfield behind them, Muir and Tyson and Walk. I mean, goodness me, Eric Gates slipped in there as well a little while. Mariner formed lots of good partnerships. You heard Paul Cook at the beginning of last season talk about partnerships, or the season before we've gone on about creating partnerships. And he created a lot of partnerships. He ended up being just a fantastic striker for Town. So very privileged to have watched him.
Yeah, you can just feel the warmth coming off the page when you read or hear any of these quotes from anyone that knew him, whether it was during his playing career, whether it was post-playing career when he obviously had some time in management, went to Plymouth back as a manager, spent a lot of time in America. Anyone who worked with him just speaks with just utter love. You can just hear it. You know, the respect that everyone had for the man. So I'm looking forward to seeing the tributes on Saturday. I think that's going to be a real moment when both sets of fans sort of come together on that one.
Absolutely. And just finally, as I said, but Russell Osman again was talking to them. I think they had another get together, the UEFA Cup winning team recently, or players reunion recently, and obviously, and Russell said, Paul wasn't there, and the beat wasn't there, and they missed them terribly. And of course, Paul was only 68, I believe, when he died last year. Terribly early. Such a shame. But look, his memories are absolutely etched in for all of us who saw him at that time. I mean, that is the beauty of it. I can sit here and talk about him as a young kid watching a striker like that. Wow, and all the Ipswich Town fans who watched him. That's a lovely thing. No one has forgotten him. No one's forgotten Paul Mariner and what he did for Ipswich Town. So, yeah, looking forward to it, Stuart. Should be great. Little lump in the old throat. And I hope the North Stand sing A Million Miles for one of your goals, Paul Mariner. Have you heard that song, Roscoe? Have you ever heard it before? We walk a million miles for one of your goals. Paul, no, you won't have done, you see, because you're a bit young. But
no.
Every time, when he used to score a goal, Mariner used to run his arm up high, and the North Stand would sing, we'll walk a million miles for one of your goals, Paul Mariner, really loud. If they do that again on Saturday, that would be lovely. That'd be a lovely little touch if they do that. But anyway,
just give your Russell Osman thing one last plug, Mike. Is that going out as a video as well? Are we putting that?
No, it's a piece going out on Saturday, hopefully, with Russell, and a nice little video. Now, Roscoe's done himself proud here. We've done a little video together, haven't we, Roscoe, with about Paul Mariner. I did a few words, a little talk over, and Ross has put together a load of pictures. Ross, that's come along nicely, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. I want to quickly just bring up a picture, and I think this is such a lovely picture. I think it went out when, of course, Paul died, but this picture of three legends of the football club, this one here. So for the listeners, it's Bobby, Beat, and of course Mariner, and it's just a great picture. Three legends of the game for us, and I always look back at that picture and that is just a great picture.
I think that picture was taken after we beat West Brom in the FA Cup semi-final, I believe, at Highbury. I think that's the one because Town played in white that day. So that looks like that's a picture. And they've all got a little, it's Paul Mariner's got a beat. I don't know. Paul Mariner, and they're all holding a little cup of milk. Just afterwards, just to get down to a little glass of water after the game, which is nice to see, or milk or whatever they were having, which is nice to see, isn't it? You'd think they'd have a beer or something, but no. That's no. Great times, and great. Really look forward to celebrating Paul Mariner Day, and I'm glad it's nice you've read the book, Stu, or are reading the book. That's
coming towards the end of it. It's a really good read. I think it's his commentator friend from their time in America, Mark Donaldson, I believe his name is. I will double check that. It's a really good read. It's they've had to sort of get contributions from people like Mick Mills and others sort of interspersed throughout the book. Good stuff. If you haven't read that yet, I'd recommend going and getting it.
Excellent. Right. Well, look, we look forward to Paul Mariner Day, and we look forward to him being there. We'll talk about the game a little later on with Mr. Watson, the chief football writer, and young video man Roscoe down there, who will no doubt be probably upsetting more stewards, but we'll just have to get on with it and see what he can produce. We'll move on. A little bit of news from Port Road this week, Stu. Kieron Dyer. Kieron Dyer has left the under-23s post, which has come as a shock to quite a few people. Kieron was, he's the side been doing really well under his management. Under-23s, top of the table. Well, bit of a shock, Stu. I mean, are you surprised? And your thoughts?
I think for those that read the news that day, it came as a shock. The club have said it's a shock, but I think anyone that kind of knows and speaks to Kieron over a period of time will have known his growing frustrations, which he's articulated very well in a podcast with Renegade Statman. Really good hour and a half of sort of emotional, articulate chat explaining why he's come to this decision. My overriding emotion is that I'm sad that the club have lost just such a really good asset. As I've said before on this podcast, how many football clubs of Ipswich Town's size and where they're at in the pyramid have someone like Kieron Dyer, who played at World Cups, who played 33 times for England, of that era of your David Beckhams and when the money started to explode, and he's experienced what I think more of a taste of what modern day players now go through with social media and media exposure and all those sort of things. So not only is he really blooming and blossoming as a coach, he's gone away and he's really tried to improve himself. He's halfway through his pro license at the moment. He's gone away and worked and looked at other clubs' methods and things like that. But I think he had a lot to give in terms of being a mentor to players. We've seen how much James Norwood has spoken so warmly about his role in sort of when he was kind of exiled to the 23s. He's clearly been a good mentor for a lot of the under 23s, Idris El Mazouni, Tyrese Simpson, Amanda Dobra. A lot of those players have spoken how much of a role Kieron's had, in helping them both on and off the pitch. So I'm sad he's gone. I respect his principles, and I hope he doesn't regret it in the fullness of time, because this is his club, this is his town, and as much as he was frustrated, you can have more of an influence on the inside than you can obviously now on the outside. But we wish him well with his health situation first and foremost. He's hopefully getting that liver transplant pretty soon, and he'll be determined to get sort of fit and back, and I'm sure he'll be keep chucking his hat in the ring for a few jobs, and we'll see where he pops up next.
Roscoe, you saw a lot of the under 23s and under 18s when Kieron was involved with them as well. He did some good stuff with them.
He did, some of the players who have come out on social media, even the senior players. He said James Norwood. I saw even Sam Morsey make a comment, the captain of the football club. So it's not just the young pros, it's also the senior pros. But I actually watched Kieron Dyer in action for the Town under 18s against Southwold a couple of years ago. And it was very strange seeing Kieron Dyer playing at this Southwold common and also with, all the under 18s kids. But no, what he's done for the under 18s / the under 23s, they're top of the under 23s league. The under 18s have had a successful last few years. Youth Cup semi-finals, progressed in so many different players. But it's a massive loss. And as Stu said, he was a massive asset because he's a young upcoming coach who has got ambitions to become a manager of a football club. I was surprised when I saw that. And of course, we wish him all the best, not just in his coaching career, but also his, with his liver transplant and everything. So, I know a lot of Town fans just love Kieron Dyer as a player, but also as a person as well.
Does his comments about the sort of his feeling that there's not a lack of pathways and that the academy doesn't feel that it's got the amount of attention that it should do, worry either of you at all? He's talking about he thinks Cameron Humphreys is the second best central midfielder at the club behind Sam Morsey. I know Saziba is doing the business for the 23s at the moment. I think he feels that Tyrese Simpson should have been at least on the bench in recent weeks, because that sends out a message to the rest of your young players throughout the club, throughout the age groups, that if you can see it, you can be it, and you need to kind of see evidence of others getting their chance. And obviously we haven't had the club's view of this and so far, and we'll try and speak to a few people involved on that. I think Kieran McKenna would argue that a lot of them are getting regular training time with the first team. From what I gather, they're getting promoted up and training with the first team quite a lot. But does it worry you at all with the traditions of Ipswich Town Football Club and producing their own, that might be further down the pecking order? Or is it just about the short term now? Is it about there's some money behind the club? We're 3 years into League One. We've got to do what is the quickest route back to the Championship. And if that's recruiting rather than developing, is that the more sensible approach? How do you look at it?
I think that last statement you just made, Stu, sums it up a little bit, really. Is it about recruiting or is it about developing? Look, one thing Ipswich Town want to do is get out of League One. There's no doubt about that. How they do it, they really don't care less, I think, at the moment. I think we're just it's like sometimes it's wrong place, wrong time. And sometimes situations are now where, I'm not saying it's a wrong place for young players to be at Ipswich Town, but you remember Jack Lancaster's gone. I mean, Brett McGavin's out. Met Miles Kenlock. I mean, Flynn Downs has gone. Andre Dezelle has gone. I mean, these are just players I've finished off the top of my head. Luke, fortunately, Wolfenden's still around, which is great. But there's not a huge amount in that first team squad at the moment who have come through the ranks at Ipswich Town Football Club. Now, that doesn't mean, I don't think, Ipswich Town Football not interested in youth. Of course they are. But they have this awful problem at the moment of what they got to do first: develop players and hang around till they all come good, or just get out of this league and then get that development going again. And I think that's the tricky one. I think Kieron was caught in this situation where he's desperate to encourage. He wants his young players to come through, just like George Burley had faith in him, and Richard Wright and James Scowcroft and other top players who George brought youngsters in willy-nilly and didn't worry about it. But that was the situation the club was perhaps in at the time. Whereas now, we've never been this low in divisions. This is League One. The club's never been this low for so long. And perhaps the idea is now we're just going just buy the players to get us out of here. And then when you get the Championship, then perhaps you can have a whole look at your strategy again. And we need our senior, but we must have a group coming through to. That's how I see it, and that's how I think, Stu. That's probably the issue that, as you rightly said, is it recruitment or development? And I think at the moment, well, you saw by the amount of recruitment there was in the summer, it was very much about recruitment. Roscoe, your thoughts?
I think the big thing that I was worried about in the summer is that Liam Gibbs, he went to Norwich, and one of his statements was, "I can see a clear pathway." And that's him saying that at a rival club. Sometimes I think rivalries go out the window sometimes when you think about young players. I think some players just want to push on with their career. But like Liam Gibbs, he was definitely one of our shining lights to that youth, under 18s Youth Cup semi-finalist team. And he was such a great player. I know he's probably not going to be playing Premier League football in Norwich this season. And of course, they're going to be in the Championship next year. But for him to go to a rival club because he doesn't see a pathway, it was just such a shame. And I hope it doesn't happen, because we've got some other great young players coming through. There's Tawanda Chuewa. Sorry if I pronounced his name completely wrong there, but he scored 10 plus goals this season, Vol 23s. And there's players like that, I fear there's not a pathway for them. And you're like, we're going to lose out on those players, and they're going to go out and leave for a small fee. While we have Alcon Bagat, another player. Baggett, it's not Bagat, is it? It's Baggett. I can say that. But yeah, there's players like that. I fear we're just going to lose because there's no pathway there.
Yeah, I guess you'd look at a club like Brentford and say, do Brentford fans give a monkeys that they closed their academy and where they are as a club right now at the moment? Huddersfield did the same, and they're doing quite nicely in the Championship. There's a difference with those two clubs that geographically, if you're Brentford and you've got all those bigger London clubs on your patch, Huddersfield the same in Yorkshire, let other bigger clubs do the work for you. Spend all the money on scooping up all the players, training them up to a high standard at the best facilities, and when they let them go, you're there as the safety net, and you've not spent all the money. It's different here in Suffolk. So one club town, you got to go several miles to the north for Norwich, several miles west towards Cambridge, and likewise London down to the south. Is a big net here for talent. So I can understand. I know Marcus Evans had some really big doubts about the value of the academy and the cost of it going up year after year as they move the goalposts with EPPP. But yeah, especially at the time when people like Ben Knight and Charlie Brown and others were getting poached for peanuts under a very unfair compensation system. But you can still produce, and Flynn Downs will go for big money this summer to a Premier League club. I've got no doubt about it. And as Ross says, there's more coming through. Even you dip down into the lower age groups, people like Jack Manley and Nico Valentine, who have been regularly playing up the age groups. There is more talent coming through at Ipswich Town, and we don't want to see them continually going for nothing. And then Mark Ashton will know about the value of that, because Bristol City turned some really big profit on some homegrown players during his time there as well. So there's a balance to be had, isn't there, with the short term and the long term, and hopefully they can strike that.
I think you're right, Stuart. I think, as I said, when I speaking, I was saying right, right place, right time, or wrong place, wrong time, whatever it is, Ipswich Town are just not where they want to be. This is so unusual for this football club to be in this division, and people keep talking about it. And I still read stuff today, we shouldn't be in this division. And of course, I think once Ipswich Town get out of this, and I don't know when it's going to be, I'd love it to be this season, it'd be fantastic, certainly next season. I think everything will change. I think there'll be a lot of change behind the scenes on our youth policy. I think youth policy will be, because I still think youth policy is the way forward. as you say, Stu, for a club like Ipswich, it's the way forward. It's the only way forward. You ain't got money to just go out and just keep buying players all the time. But let's get out of this league, and if it means we have to take a massive senior pros to get us out of this league, or players who have done it higher up, then that's what it's got to take. Because if you're not, you can be trapped here for a long time. And it's tough for young players to come in at this league. There's some very physical sides in League One, very physical sides. And as good as players are at 17, 18 in the under-23, it's a very different game. Suddenly stick them in the first team, again, Rotherham away or Accrington Stanley. It suddenly becomes a very different game. You don't want to knock them too much. I know people will say if you're good enough, you're good enough. Yeah, okay, fair enough. But that doesn't apply to all players. And some still need developing. But my confidence is that going forward, Ipswich Town's youth policy is going to get stronger again. I don't think it's great at the moment, to be honest. And I think that's part of going back to Kieron Dyer leaving. I do think that's part of his frustration that he probably feels it isn't being, I wouldn't say taken seriously, because that's unfair to say he is being taken seriously, but not being given the opportunities. But then again, maybe if Town suddenly, unfortunately, can't make the playoffs, and the next suddenly something goes wrong in the next 2 or 3 games, maybe you might see a few blooded at the end of the season. That often used to happen in years gone by the way. Suddenly a young player would suddenly pop up for the last couple of games from.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we're on that precipice of the season nearly being done, getting towards kind of virtual dead rubbers, aren't we? I think Ipswich are going to need to win every game. Maybe can get away with one drop points in there. It's looking highly unlikely, isn't it? We'll see how they get on against Plymouth and Cambridge, and like you say, maybe that is when a Cameron Humphreys or a Tyree Simpson or someone gets a little bit of game time under McKenna. We'll see. Watch this space, but I think Kieron will. I'm really looking forward to seeing how his career progresses. I look at Colchester just down the road and think, there's a club that has got a real good, strong youth policy. It's about producing from within. Might be able to borrow a few from Playford Road with his contacts as well. They'd walk down the A12 to go and play for Kieron again, by the sounds of things. So that could be an interesting little link up at some stage. Obviously, once he's come out the other side of the transplant and everything, who knows?
Yeah, best wishes to him, Kieron. Best wishes for the future. I think he just needs a break. If I'm being perfect, I think he needs a break. I mean, don't mean a break as in a time break. I mean, he just needs a little break. He needs someone to give him an opportunity, like someone's giving Kieron McKenna an opportunity here at Ipswich Town, and Kieron's grabbing it with two hands. Kieron perhaps needs that little break as a first. I know how much he enjoyed being on the pitch, warming up players before League One games. And he has done on many occasions. Perhaps just needs that break of being perhaps a little bit further down the pyramid, but given a chance to be the first team manager, the head coach, not the under-23s or the deputy or the reserve or whatever. So good luck with that. And I'm sure you'll agree as well, Roscoe.
Yes, I think that's what he needs, just a break, a chance from somewhere. Probably not where he wants to be, but sometimes, unfortunately, a lot of people, like Kieron McKenna, did he probably want to manage a League One football club? But he probably thought that is the only pathway for him to get into the first little, to be the man. And he's, as you said, he's using both hands and he's doing so well. And we shall wait and see what Kieron Dyer's next step is.
There's a little saying, isn't there? From little acorns, big trees. Is it little acorns, Stu? Big trees. I planted last year some acorns in my back garden, but nothing much has happened yet. Do they grow straight away? I don't know if they probably don't. Probably I'm expecting too much for an oak tree to like 20-foot oak tree within a year. It doesn't really happen, does it, Stu? I'm not really into gardening, to be honest, but don't know. Probably not.
Move on.
Okay. Right. Well, we are going to move on, actually. I hope you're enjoying the Kings of Anglia podcast. I'm sure we all are. We're all sitting here chatting. We've done a bit of Stuart's my vice captain in the East Anglia Daytimes golf team, as you know. And we're now going to go over to Stu. Stu, we're going to call this little section Ask Stu, who's going to ask us. That's a good little name. It's a bit sort of tongue twisty, but it's like a little mailbag, Stu. We've had our KOA family.
It's the mailbag, Mike. We call it the mailbag. And we can go for Ask Stu so he can ask us. To sort of extrapolate that was Ask KOA last week, which we then didn't do because the rate the players under McKenna thing went on for over an hour. So we're going back to those questions. We're revisiting an old mailbag that we didn't get a chance to. I've got some written down here in front of me. We've got some interesting ones, actually, and I'll start with one from Harvey Davies. Harvey Davies, Ross. You know Harvey's.
I say it differently all the time, but I think
Okay.
it is Davies, possibly.
Davies. Okay, well, Harvey, friend of the show, number something. No one ever
Sweet Welsh Prince and all that.
Yeah, he asks, fast forward 12 months. We're in March 2023. Where a town in the league and how many points have we got? He adds, for the sake of this, we're still unfortunately in League One. I think that's a safe assumption. So where are Ipswich?
Right. I'll tell exactly where they are, shall I? Because I know, I probably know, to be honest, which is going to spoil the answer for you, Ross, because your answer is going to be irrelevant. Mine, correct. They will be third. They'll be third, and currently they'll be third on 70 points, and they'll be just 3 points off second, with about 6-7 games to go. It's going to be one hell of a ride in. Kieran McKenna's already won 4 Manager of the Month awards. We have a new striker. I won't tell you who he is, but he cost £10 million. That's all I'll say. Okay, that's all I'll say, folks. Right, and he's already got 28 goals, but I'm not telling you who he is. Okay, and Cameron Humphreys is running the midfield, and and basically that's where we'll be. That's a year's time, so it's fantastic. Looking forward to that.
Ross, any advance on third?
Mike is currently playing a FIFA game, as it sounds like spending 10 million on a striker. I know we've got a Manny now for the Americans, but I don't think 10 million pounds will be spent in League One.
League One FFP might have something to say about that one.
Yeah. Well, I hope we're in the playoffs. Now, what do I think? Surely we've got to be in the top 6. We can't be another season in 9th. So I'm going to say 4th, but we are battling. I think it's going to be another close League One season next year. So 4th, but we've been up there all season. We haven't, struggled. We've been up there all season, and we're just having a little purple patch, and we're going to finish the season off strong.
I've got some thoughts on this. This would be the point where Mark would sigh and roll his eyes and say that I have to show my workings in a Stuart Watson way, but I'm going to do it because that's me. Ipswich are currently 9th with 61 points, right? And I've gone through game by game to work out how much McKenna has improved the reverse fixtures from earlier in the season. So, for example, Morecambe was a draw on the opening day. It stayed a draw under McKenna, so that's a 0 points different. I've gone back through it. I'm not going to give you every match. You can do that yourself if you want. But Ipswich are 6 points up under McKenna from the thing. So if we're saying they're on 61 points now, I'm going to give them another 6. If McKenna had been here all season, that would be 67, which would put them up in 6th as it stands, just. But I'm going to add a little bit on because I think we got the summer transfer window. McKenna's got his feet under the door a little bit more, embedded things in. So, sprinkle a few extra points on top of there. And I'm probably somewhere where Ross is about 4th, I think. I think there'll be a lot of people's picks for the title next season. I think people might get a little bit carried away and excited about Ipswich. We have to remember we got Derby coming down, Peterborough probably coming down, one of Barnsley or Reading, even taking Rotherham and Wigan out of the equation. There'll still be everyone bar one out of MK, Plymouth, Oxford, Sunderland, Sheffield Wednesday, Wycombe, Portsmouth. Bolton might improve, Charlton might improve. There's going to be a hell of a lot of competition in there. So, honestly, if you offered me 4th now, if you offered me anywhere in that top 6, call me pessimistic, but I'd take it. Ipswich haven't finished in the playoffs 3 times in a row. Let's just concentrate on making that step first before we start getting carried away and talking about 1st or 2nd at this moment in time. I hope that's a wildly pessimistic prediction, and I hope they do. I hope they are the major force that we hope they can be. But I'm just going to dial that optimism down just a little bit. So we got 3rd, 4th, and 4th. So we'll see. There's a little add question to that from Chris Warren, sibling of Andrew, who says, "And who from the current squad is in the team come March next year?" Thoughts?
Go on, Ross. I'll let you think. I'll let you chuck that one in first.
Like Walton has to be still in goal, surely.
Yep.
Hopefully. Wolfie, Emerson, naming all the back four. I think the whole back line, I think, are still here.
That'll be interesting, won't it? Of that
Yeah.
back three, will it still be the back three, the first choice back three of Donassi and Wolfenden and Edmondson? Because I think they have to go and sign another centre half this summer. And the question is, does that centre half get in and do they stay in? That'll be interesting, won't it? If it is still that back three. I mean, the amount of clean sheets they've kept, there's every reason to think that they could stick with that.
Yeah, very much so, because the defence has been the big success story since McKenna arrived, hasn't he? And it's a very difficult thing to get right. The defence, it's easy, 0-0 draws are all very well and boring when you get one or two, but not conceding a goal in the amount of times Ipswich have since he's arrived is extraordinary. To have a defence that watertight is extraordinary. It's the sort of thing every manager dreams of. Don't worry if you don't win every game, but the fact you don't concede a goal means you don't lose many. So yes, I think you're right, Stu. There will someone will come in. I think a left back will come in as well, maybe a left-sided defender. But if I was him, I wouldn't be tinkering too much with the defence, to be honest. As regards to midfield, well, Morsey, obviously, like Morsey, he'd love Selena to still be here, obviously. But you did a good piece, and Andy did a good piece this week about Selena. I don't quite know whether he felt he was going to be here or not. It's going to be difficult with Selena.
We'll come on to the front. We'll come on to the front end. Let's do it position by position. But if we look at that sort of midfield four, Burns, I think we'd love to still be flying up and down the right. Morsey, every reason to believe he'll still be captain fantastic in the middle. Evans, I've put a little question mark next to. There's every chance it could be the Morsey Evans midfield too, but bit like defence really. I think they will go and get another central midfielder. Tom Carroll will probably leave. Is my gut feeling. We don't know what will happen with Backinson, and then it's whether that person is a sizable upgrade on Evans and can get in and change that midfield. And then left midfield is obviously sort of a big question mark there with Dominic Thompson's loan coming up and Penny having not quite done it so far, and so I don't think we can nail our colours to anyone on the left side, Mast, out of the current crop. And then the front three could be anything, couldn't it? There's major question marks next to everybody. Selena's loan coming to an end, Aluko's contract coming up, Jackson's contract coming up, Bond's loan coming to an end, Norwood contract, Simpson's contract, Piggott's under contract but hasn't caught a light yet. Chaplin's obviously under contract but not starting every week. That front three could be anything. There's a chance that one or two of those players are still here, but I think there's going to be a bit of a revamp to that top end of the pitch. Do you?
Yeah, I think you're right, Stu. I think there might well be. There's a lot of players. Cook brought a lot of players there, didn't he? Attacking wise, we're just spoilt for choice, but sport for choice hasn't got us into the top three, has it? So there's going to have to be some change. I think Chaplin will stay all day long. I think I like Connor Chaplin.
Yeah, that's without doubt. But whether you think he's going to be starting come March next year is another question. But he'll definitely be here.
He'll be around.
Role to play.
Yeah, and I think obviously got Piggott will definitely be still. I still think Piggott will stay. I know he's under contract, and people talk about will he move on. I don't think he'll move on at all. That's why I think McKenna keeps giving him the opportunities. But yeah, I think you're right. Selena, would love to see Selena here. I'd like to see going back quickly to midfield again. I'd like to see a big, tall, stronger midfield in the centre there. Is there a guy who's the guy Nottingham? The guy Nottingham who plays at is it Accrington or Fleetwood or somewhere? Yeah.
He's a defender.
Oh, is he? Oh, can't he play in the midfield then?
From what I've seen, I don't think we should be signing a big centre half from Accrington to play central midfield. But I know what you mean about being
but you know what I mean?
Undersized Ipswich, aren't they? Yeah, a bit of height and physicality. Yeah. I think would bring a bit more balance.
Couldn't Nottingham still play in the midfield, Stu?
Could do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not his agent or anything. I just obviously just keep asking us all. So you definitely say we definitely couldn't get Nottingham for the centre bit. Anyway, now I'll move on from that. Okay, so not Nottingham, but do you agree with me then, Stu? I'd like to see a big presence in that centre midfield, a tall someone win headers as well as just strong. And because Morsey's great, Morsey's tough and rugged, and but I mean, height is not everything. I'm only 5'1.5". So I mean, I can't talk, but I mean, it's
Tyreek
not everything.
Atkinson's a prime example of that, isn't he? He's 6'3", 6'4",
Yeah.
whatever he is. But you wouldn't say he's a physical,
No.
dominating player. And you can have undersized players. I don't know, someone like Tim Cahill springs to mind, is 5'10", but was brilliant in the air. So, someone who's got a bit of sort of physicality and maybe can win some aerial duels. I think that will help from a set piece point of view as well for Ipswich. I definitely think in terms of whatever position it is, that will be an attribute that will be high on the Ashton computer when they're sticking in what they want into their little search engine this summer.
That's a long question.
Do you want a fun question?
Yes.
Ben Chaplin asks, and this is, I think, I don't know if you saw this. It was a Bristol City TikTok video where they asked one of their players, "Are there more Wills or more Doors in the world?" And the Bristol City player gave a very long-winded round the houses answer in his strong Bristolian accent, and it went a bit viral. So, I can see you confused here.
I don't understand the question. I mean,
in the world, are there more Wills or are there more Doors? In the whole entire world, are there more Wills or Doors? Simple as that.
Well, don't just say simple as that. That's a silly question. We mean, are there wheels or doors? I mean, what you mean?
Well,
wheels?
think about it. Cars have wheels.
Wheels. I thought you said wheels. I thought you said wheels,
wheels.
as in. I thought you said wheels. Well, no, wheels. Oh, what things that go round in circles?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you meant wheels that you write to leave everything to somebody.
No.
Ah,
sorry. Right.
You see,
now think about it.
Yeah, it's a good question to do that now. Wheels or what?
Doors.
Wheels or doors. I think looking at there are more doors because there's a door behind me and there's a door. I have to go out 2 doors to go out my patio doors, and it says 2 doors before I get to my car, which is a 3-wheeler. So I've only got 3 wheels. So I've got lots more doors. Roscoe, come on, you're the man for this.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's doors, to be honest. There's a lot of doors in houses, a lot of doors on cars and vans. I'm not going to do a long-winded answer. I'm just going to say doors.
I'm going to disagree. I think wheels, because I think we're overlooking. Are we counting things like cogs in machinery? Is that a wheel? Technically, something that sort of turns.
Well, no, that's a cog, isn't it? You can't just cut everything that's circular. I mean, otherwise you just a wagon wheel or something that you get from Sainsbury's. A wagon wheel.
There you go. Wheel. We haven't factored in wagon wheels for a start.
You can't have wagon wheels.
Don't get a wagon door, do you? There's no edible doors. I think wheels. Yeah. I think you're just looking around you. You're doing a bit too short-sighted. You're thinking about what you use. But I think there's a lot of unseen wheels. I'm going to go away and think about this. Maybe we'll come back to this in the next one. We got time for a couple more before we move on to Plymouth. Shefford Blue asks, we've seen big developments in the likes of Wolfenden since Kieran McKenna came in. How much untapped potential is there left in the current squad? Is there anyone that you can see sort of a Wolfenden-like Lazarus rise, someone that's maybe sort of not being used to their full potential at the moment?
Personally, I know Chaplin's been starting a lot more recently. I'd start him every week. He'd be a player. He would be mine. He should have been Ipswich's number 10 from the start and left as a number 10, not sort of chopped and changed around like we did, choosing different players. I think he's got a lot. I know he's a quality player who's already given a lot. I just think there's so much more to Connor Chaplin that we're starting to see at times. Don't get me wrong, but he would just have been. I'd have made the team around him. Morsey and Chaplin. I'm not worried about Morsey and Evans in the centre. That I'd have Morsey, Chapman in front of him. That would have been for all right. As soon as they are both fit to play, they'd start every single game, and I think would have been a slightly better position if Chaplin had started every single game rather than the ones he has. So Chaplin's my man for a little bit more oomph.
Good sharp, good age, good contract length on him. Still good character. You can see his role certainly increasing over time. Ross, you?
Yeah, Mike's pretty just stolen my answer there. But I think just a player like out on loan at the moment, Kieron Dyer, he's currently doing really well at Salford. He's, I think, was team of the week, player of the match in the last game. He's a left-sided centre half, so I'm hoping he'll get a chance next season, and that's the centre half sorted if you think about it. So yeah, hopefully he'll be one of those on-tap players who can come in next season, have a good pre-season and kick on. But yeah, Connor Chaplin's a good shout because I'm a big fan of Connor Chaplin.
I've got a couple of names written down. I've got Kyle Edwards. I think we forget just how electric and how good he was in those early months. I'm really interested to see what Kieran McKenna can do with him once he's back from injury and fully fit. We've talked about that question mark on the left side. I think Kyle Edwards could play that role, a bit more wing-backy, and that sort of, he could be the mirror image of Wes Burns on the left-hand side, and how exciting would that be? And I'd throw Kane Vincent-Young in there as well. I think for me, going back this season, he was in the top 3 best players at the club pre-injury. Maybe they can get him back to his dynamic self again, and he could have a role to play. I'd say sort of, again, both of those are injury related, but I think there's more to come from both of those two. Ross, you've already answered this question, so we've jumped ahead a little bit. Chris Peachy, out of all the players on loan, who do you think has a future under McKenna? So we've got your answer, Ross, in Kieron Dyer. I'll just give you the quick list, Mike, to remind you. We've got Thomas Holy at Port Vale, Bailey Clements at Stevenage, Raheem Harper at Crewe, Kenlock and Dobber at Colchester, McGavin at Kings Lynn, and then Darber at Salford, plus a smattering of some of the younger lads out at different places. But that's the main list. Who can you see kicking on?
Well, if I'm being brutally honest, probably not many of them, to be honest. I'm afraid, if I'm being a bit, I actually went to Crewe the other week. It was Crewe versus Wickham. What a wonderful busman's holiday that was for me up there at Crewe. That was. But I went to Nantwich, lovely Nantwich, by the way, Stu, very nice. I went to see the Dabbers, also a non-league team up there. But anyway, that's another story. I went to see Crewe. Raheem Harper played. He didn't have the greatest game, I must be honest. I'd hoped he was going to stand out for me, but he didn't. He potentially is the one, I suppose, who could come back into the squad and do a job.
He should be, shouldn't he? In terms of, you look at his experience and his pedigree and reputation, he should be the one jumping off that page saying, we've talked about that there's going to be opportunities in central midfield next season. He should be the one. But Mark Heath did a sort of a lone watch piece where he spoke to various fans and journalists and podcasters who cover these various clubs, and Raheem Harper's verdict wasn't particularly flattering. They were talking about questioning his fitness, a little bit lethargic, only little flashes of ability, not sure what his best position is. So really a continuation of the themes that we kind of saw here, which led to him obviously getting loaned out. So there'd have to be a question mark there over Raheem Harper. Maybe McKenna can get hold of him and do something. We'll see. But I mean, you're right. The others, I think they're virtually sort of, never mind 1 foot out the door. I think there's sort of there's one toe over the line still in the club with people like Holy and Clements and Kenlock. They're gone. McGavin, aren't they? I'd agree with Ross. I think Kieron Dyer could be a really interesting one. A real defender who's comfortable on the ball. He's a left footer as well, which are gold dust when it comes to defenders. And is getting rave reviews down at Salford. He's playing left back for them at the moment. He was injured for a chunk of the season, came back in January, and is keeping their sort of fans' favourite out of the team at left back at the moment. So maybe that left side of the back three could be well suited to him and frees up Edmondson to play on a more comfortable side. We shall see on that one. I think that's probably it for mailbag. Do you want to? We should probably have a little chat about Ipswich's game against Plymouth.
Well, absolutely. Well, it's a big game on Saturday. Well, they're all big games at the moment, aren't they? One after another, and we're getting now to what's that phrase? Squeaky something time with it all, and coming up to the playoffs. Right, Stu, go on. You're the main man when it comes to Ipswich Town Football Club here. You tell us how you see this one going.
I think we've gone beyond squeaky bum time now for Ipswich. I think these last 2 draws have killed it off for me. Unfortunately, you've got to beat the team. If they were going to close the gap on the top 6, to beat the teams above them at some point. And we keep banging on about, it's the start of the season that's hurt us. It's that 8-game winless start in all competitions that has led to this. Yes, that probably did set the direction of travel and set the narrative, but they haven't beat a team in the top 7. And here we are at the end of March. If you haven't beaten anyone in the top 7, you ain't going to finish top 6, are you? And you could, yes, there's been coulda, woulda, shoulda, fine margins, maybes, go up to Sunderland, play really well, lose 2-0. Oxford at the weekend, dominate the second half, deservedly lead, concede at the death. You can go through several games like that against those higher ranking sides. And that's been a theme of Ipswich in League One for 3 years now. Close but no cigar against those better teams. So I think the ship has sailed on top six. And unfortunately, there's just, I mean, you've got to go near perfect finish to the season. And there's an Easter weekend against Rotherham and Wigan to come. So, it's Plymouth at home. And what I want now is just to see if they can, if we talked about that 6-point improvement from McKenna on the reverse games, can he go and improve some of those Paul Cook results? We've got Plymouth obviously lost down there in a really good open end-to-end game. Can Ipswich come out on the right side of one of those type of matches? Can Ipswich beat Cambridge, which was a draw earlier in the season? Can they match a Wigan or a Rotherham and just go into the summer maintaining a bit of the current feel-good factor? That's kind of how I feel about these final 6 games now. Is it 7? Well, where are we at? I can't remember.
Don't ask me. I think it's 7.
7.
6. No, it's 6.
7, says Ross.
Oh, it's 7.
What do you reckon? Plymouth at home, gents. What are we expecting?
Plymouth a good side. 6 games unbeaten currently. But a good thing, they're losing. 2 of their players, their key players, are not playing on the weekend because they've been called out internationally. Kamara and Jeffcott. And Kamara, what a player he's proven to be in League One. And Sam Morsey will be pleased he's not in the midfield, although he'll battle him well. But there'll be key losses for Plymouth, and I think that'll give us that extra edge maybe. But this is going to be a tough game, but I think it is going to be an entertaining game. Just like the Portsmouth game, that was entertaining, but then also got boring at the end because Portsmouth was happy with a draw. So hopefully it's not a goalless draw, but Town, Kieran McKenna has made Portman Road a fortress. But yeah, it's going to be a tough game. And I just want us to make a statement, please. Just make a statement, beating a team who are in the top 6. But yeah, the season's dead. So won't matter if we did win. But yeah, looking forward to this one.
I must admit, you're right, Stu, about not beating anyone top 7. Ironically, of course, Ipswich have now got a chance to be about 3 of them, haven't they, in the top 7 as in the run-in. So it is all about finishing now, how you finish. I speak to a lot of Town fans who are really enthralled by the way Ipswich playing at the moment. They're thoroughly enjoying turning up at Portman Road on a Saturday afternoon. I can tell you, a few years ago, as we all know, Stu, you were covering them regularly. It wasn't always quite so exciting as you walked up to the Port Road thinking, "Oh no, what's this?" And now it is. It's a lot more. There's a lot more going on. The team are playing a lot better. There's a lot more confidence in the side, and you have a good feeling about it. It looks like it's going to be too late for this season, which is a crying shame. But there you go. You have got to take momentum with you into the summer. There's no doubt about that. And beating teams like Plymouth, there might not be anything on it. There may not be anything on it, but it's not the point. You've got to keep this feel-good stuff going because Ipswich are playing some good football at times. The fans are coming in their numbers. I mean, it's going to be at 22,000 again there Saturday. I mean, these are great crowds. I mean, entertain them. Look like there's something worth buying your season ticket for next season. Because I don't know how many home games are left. It can't be 3 maybe. I don't know. It can't be 3 or 4 maximum. But there's not that many. So people are going to be making their judgments what they see. So every game's crucial, regardless of what it means for playoffs.
Just looking at Plymouth's results, I didn't realise quite how good they were. Ross has just said they've won 6 in a row. Do you know how many goals they conceded in those 6 wins?
12.
0. They've kept 6 successive clean sheets. They've got 8 clean sheets in their last 10. You wondered when Ryan Lowe left to step up a division, whether plucky Plymouth, they'll fade away now. But Schumacher's stepped up as assistant and they've carried on. It was one of the handful of games that one of the very few games I've not been at this season was down at Plymouth. And I remember Andy came back and said, I said to Andy, are they going to maintain that this season? And he was sure. He said they're one of the best footballing teams I've seen this season. So it's a tough old task for Ipswich on Saturday. But like you say, the home form's been good. Morsey isn't, it was good to see Morsey get some minutes in the second half last weekend. So hopefully he's fit and able to start, and just be good to get a striker scoring some goals again, wouldn't it? Could be Macaulay Bond's time. I thought that was he looked lively when he stepped off the bench last weekend. Looked a bit more like the Macaulay Bonne of old. So that would be one of my big wishes going into the weekend. Macaulay Bonne to score in front of a big crowd at Portman Road. That would be nice.
Right. But well, before we go, right now, I don't know. I'm not on here every week. So this Millennium Goal pick £100,000 million that Warren Hutch, the Hutch man, seems to have in his bank account and nobody else's, which I think is wrong because he could just run off. He could run off to somewhere like San Marino and go and live there with all that money. So what happens when he's not here? Do we not play, or what do we do, or do what? Can I make one up?
Normally, it's Andy has the keys to that, and if he's not here, it doesn't get done. But I would argue we're running out of games now.
Yes,
and I'm going to make an executive decision that I'm going to
call it.
And I don't know how Andy's going to feel about this. I'm giving it to you, Mike. I'm letting you make a call. Spend some of his money. Make it fun for the listeners.
Exactly.
I mean, he lost about $500,000, didn't he, recently on some big bet. I feel like we should honour Andy's bet that he's backing Morsey to score every game. So straight away, I'm taking 50k. 50k of his money's going on Morsey to score. Right, anytime, bosh, that's down. Mike, anything you want to do with the money? I don't know what he's down to. He's down to about £500,000. Be as bold as you like.
Right. I think we should put £100,000 on there to be at least 5 goals.
Right.
Okay. £100,000 on 5 goals.
I've just told you that Plymouth have kept 6 successive clean sheets. We know Ipswich don't concede many. You're going for at least 5 goals.
Think of the odds, Stuart. Just think of the odds. I mean, there must be. It's massive. We'll all retire. We'll all be able to retire on Monday morning when that comes home. And if we lose, he's still got lots of money. He's still got. If Morsey scores, that's another big one. It's a win-win in my eyes.
Okay, Ross, I'm going to give you a bet as well, just because that's what we're doing.
Do you know what? Macaulay Bonne to score anytime.
Bonne anytime. What should we stick on that?
Just 50 grand.
50. Stick a little 50 on Bonne at any time. We got 50 on Morsey at any time. And in complete contradiction to your bet, and this will lead us on to score predictions, I'm going to have to back a 0-0 for all the reasons that we've discussed. Two possession-based teams that don't concede many might cancel each other out. Let's stick 50 on that as well. 50k on a 0-0. I don't know how valid yours is. I might have to run this by Andy. I mean, I did say you could have one, but is that genuinely what you want to put 100,000 on?
All right, I'll put 50 on there. I won't be greedy.
50. Let's make it fair.
Okay, let's make it 50. But
each.
We can, look. If I went into the bookies tomorrow and asked for that, I get good odds. I can see it. I can see it now. There'll be a goal in the first 5 minutes. There, I'll tell you that now, and that'll lead on to a goal fest.
Okay, so we've got 50k on 0-0, 50k on at least 5 goals in the game, 50 grand on Morsey to score any time, and we got 50k on Bonne at any time as well. I've given my score prediction. Over to you two.
Well, I think it'll be 0-0. So, but I think it'll be entertaining. Don't get me wrong. I think it'll be entertaining, Nick, goalless draw. I'll go for 0-0.
No, come on. How does your 5-goal thriller shake out?
My 5-goal thriller shakes out 4-1 to Town.
4-1 to Town.
You thought I was going to say 3-2, didn't you? Somebody, but it's no 4-1 because Ipswich will just go goal crazy. They'll go crazy.
If Ipswich win 4-1 on Saturday,
what?
Then we're all, come on, it's still on. We can win every game now. That's it. We're going to beat Cambridge at home the following weekend. It's the hope that kills you, isn't it, Ross?
It's gonna be a tight one, but an entertaining one. 1-0, Macaulay Bonne to score.
Yes,
it's going to be unbelievable scenes. Maybe a late winner, maybe.
I like it. I like your two predictions. I'll take both of them. Thank you very much. Mike, over to you for the outro.
Well, the outro. I've done the intro now. The outro. And before I go, look. Don't forget, my friend, Mr. Watson. We're going to have to go and sharpen your short game up before the big match next week against Melton Orders for the Anglian. But anyway, that's a little aside. Right, KOA family. I hope you've enjoyed listening to our a little chat here about all sorts of things. Paul Mariner Day at the weekend. We're really looking forward to celebrating that. A fantastic striker. If you haven't seen him, find a little YouTube clip and just see if you can have a look. If you don't know much about Paul Mariner, but look, let's hope Ipswich Town, in all seriousness, get a great result on Saturday. More's the point, keep the entertainment going, because people are enjoying coming to Portman Road again. I think that's the main thing. For myself, Laporte, and I say goodbye, and I'll hand you over now to young Roscoe and to Mr. Watson to say their goodbyes, and we'll see you on the Kings of Anglia podcast next week.
That's not how outros work. We don't all say goodbye. You just wrap it up. Go to manscaped.com, because Mike's failed to mention our sponsors as well. KOA at the checkout will get you some sort of discount. We haven't quite remembered whether
20%.
Is it 20. I was going to say 10. So immediately there, that makes it feel like it's more, like it's extra. It's 20% discount at manscaped.com. KOA. Ross, Mike said, do you want to say goodbye?
Goodbye.
Goodbye from him. Goodbye from me. Goodbye from all of us. We'll see you next week.